Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second Incuto podcast. I'm Andrew Rabbitt. I'm the CEO of Incuto. I'd like to welcome Luke McGilvray from First Class Credit Union talking to us today. Thanks for joining us, Luke.
No problem, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me on.
Hey, that's okay. Look, I always like to just start with a little bit of an intro of you and who you are and what you do.
Okay.
So maybe you could just give us a quick background.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm Luke from First Class Credit Union. I've been there for 5 years now in May. It's not felt as long as that. It's flew by. But now I deal with digital communications, digital channels, member services, and a little bit of business development as well. Now in my 5th year there.
How did you first come across credit unions? Did you just kind of like apply for a job, or did you have some sort of background in credit unions before that?
No, so my father actually worked closer with First Class Credit Union and does work still with credit unions across Scotland, providing some ad hoc IT services. So he was working with First Class. They needed someone to come in and help with some administration over the summer. I needed a summer job, so two of them fit like a jigsaw, and I started at 1 day a week, went to 2 days, 3, ended up 5. And at the end of the summer, I didn't want to go back to college. And First Class turned around and said, well, why don't you do your apprenticeship here, which was in digital marketing. And at that time, they had no one to fulfill that role. So they kind of created the apprenticeship role for myself, so I didn't have to leave, which suited me. I was nervous getting into a new office, but I'd found my feet within First Class. So I went from 1 day a week doing filing to 5 days a week at the end of the summer in a digital marketing role.
Yeah, because credit unions are very different to a lot of organizations that are kind of marketing. I mean, do you find it's a kind of a different challenge to try and talk to the members of the credit union in a particular way, or from what you've done before? Is it a very particular way that you need to engage with them that is sort of different to how you would normally do in sort of digital marketing?
Yeah, definitely. From the training that I undertook in the apprenticeship, the translating that to the non-for-profit charitable sector of credit unions was quite difficult to start with. It was more of advertise, push it down the throat of customers, persuasion, whereas credit unions, it's more, let's think about the service, let's change ideas, enforce the savings aspect, make people think about their money, think about loans. Do you need a loan? If yes, why? If no, are you borrowing elsewhere? Do you know we could save you money? Are you saving? Yes or no? And expanding that conversation rather than, here's our APR, here's our interest rate, just take a loan because you might need a new car, but you might not, just take the money anyway. So it was more along the lines of helping understanding, which took some time to get used to.
And I mean, does that work? Is it being successful for First Class?
Successful, maybe not as much as we'd like. It definitely does work if we look at their members and how they use our services. Every single member saves. Just under 50% of our members borrow. When we speak to our members, they seem to understand why we attach their savings to their loans. If they need help in that regard, we do help them. So it seems like members are more and more understanding of what the credit union is, why we enforce certain rules, and why we're there. But there is always a gap where members don't understand or don't even understand maybe the product that they have, just because they've either never learned, we've not told them enough, it's not been easy enough to understand. So there's still some barriers there that we need to try and break down as the years go on.
And have you found that more and more people are kind of engaging with you digitally? They're engaging through that marketing?
Yep, definitely. Since our launch of the Incuto website, members area loans, and the new member applications in July, our digital engagements went up by roughly 40% to 83%. We were sitting on Friday. 83% of our memberships have registered for online access, which is great. I'd be inclined to say that 90% of our loans, if not more, come in online applications are 99% online. Share withdrawals are in the high 90s as well. So it's definitely worked over the 5 years. It was a struggle at the start, but now, as we've made the big push to better digital services, when we understood our members' needs, it's definitely paying dividends now.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, obviously, it can't go unnoticed that last year was 2020, our favorite year of all, right? How was 2020 for you guys? You know, it's obviously a bit of a mixed kind of challenge of having an organization that suddenly everybody's working from home, all your members are disrupted, but your members, I guess, largely were actually key workers, right?
Yeah. So First Class, a small background, is started within Glasgow in a Royal Mail Centre, only servicing the employees of there, then progressed to Scotland and in the wider United Kingdom, only of Royal Mail, and then expanded into the trade union of the CWU, the Communications Workers Union, which meant we could take in places like Capita, Santander, O2, really expanding the common bonds. We just recently merged with another credit union, which worked with the trade union of PCS, which is Public and Commercial Services, which is a huge common bond. There's companies like DVLA, HMRC, DWP, some of the largest employers in the UK. So that's expanded our common bond for the credit union there. And on the back of that, Royal Mail being our largest employer, around 65% of our employees are Royal Mail. If we see the rest are from O2, Capita, and government agencies, all are key workers.
Yeah,
all have been pretty solid in their job. Royal Mail, especially, delivering mail through probably the toughest time ever, other than the Christmas pressure, I'm sure a postman will say. So we've been very lucky in that regard that our membership hasn't been too impacted. Other than the families and the households of those members, our membership's been quite largely intact.
I mean, I appreciate we're still all locked in our living rooms, but where do you see the opportunity for 2021? How do you see this year sort of panning out? What are the big things that First Class is going to do? What are you going to do this year, do you think, to kind of change the world a little bit?
So the biggest opportunities for us is just remaining relevant and making sure that when a member does come out of COVID-19, that their holiday loan is delivered by First Class, their car loan is delivered by First Class, their summer loan going back to school is delivered by the credit union that tried to help them as much as possible through the pandemic. So trying to reinforce that we're there at all times. Growing as much as possible as well. Growing membership, growing loans, growing our services if need to be, growing our team to deliver those services. So there's definitely a massive gap for growth. And then, and the one in everybody's lips is just trying to get back to normal.
Do you know, that's a really, really nice way of looking at it. Remaining relevant is such a good kind of aim, right? Because it's so, when you look at the kind of news headlines about financial services and about products that kind of come and go, and payday loans are certainly one of them, and other people that are coming through now. The one thing that seems really consistent to me about credit unions is that, having kind of emerged in the UK in the 1960s, they're really stable.
Yeah,
they don't kind of go out of business and cyclically kind of get better and slower and faster. They just sort of keep going and keep growing through that period of time all the way. And these other companies kind of emerge and then they're gone. And take a load of people with them. And it just seems such a nice way, and that relevance thing is something that I'm really interested in. How do you make sure people know about you and know that you're there? What do you in terms of, like, if you could tell someone about a credit union, put your marketing hat back on, right? If you could just tell someone anything you wanted about a credit union, what would you say would be like a compelling thing that would make somebody want to come in and join?
I would say to someone, do you like being treated like an individual? or do you like being treated like a collective and tarred with the same brush as the next person next to you? If their answer is what I expect to be, yes, I like being treated like an individual, then I'd say a credit union is where you should be putting your money and using your financial services from.
That's really interesting, because one of the interesting dynamics when we first came into this, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is that there seemed to be quite a heavy sort of lean on an aging population of membership. Yeah. So do you think that's kind of an important thing in terms of being able to attract younger members, that kind of personalization of it and making sure that people know it's about them individually?
Yeah,
do you think that sort of plays into that getting that younger audience?
Younger membership has been on our objectives, our annual objectives, and our business plan since I've been here 5 years. It's always one that comes up at the AGM. It's always one that comes up at our strategy meetings. We rebranded 3.5 years ago, changing our colour scheme, changing our logo in order to attract younger membership, and especially female membership as well. We are heavily male orientated with our membership, trying to change that all the time. The new membership, I think one of the biggest things for my generation and younger is reviews, good news stories. If I'm looking to buy a product, someone's either told me about that product, I've seen it on social media, or I've then read a review about it. So changing the good news, bad news stories to good news for credit unions, getting them to publicise their reviews, how they help people. I think that's definitely how it attracts younger people, but also focusing on the word of mouth. It's probably that within an employer-based credit union like myself, it's a massive tool that if you can utilise, you're going to grow tenfold. If you can get the good news stories floating around the work floor, in the canteen, then you're definitely onto a winner there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And so obviously with a lean on digital marketing, is that kind of word of mouth thing? Are those stories ones that you kind of try and tell? Do you try and talk to the members about other people's experience? Is that something you kind of spend some time sharing?
Yeah, during my experiences of attending large conferences on behalf of both trade unions for first class and the changing workplaces, I feel like those good news stories are better told word of mouth as well, over a desk, sitting down at a table. When you tell someone else's experience and you're looking in the eye, it makes a bigger impact than just reading 5-star review from Gareth saying this loan helped me so much. It's not got the personal touch as it does sitting across a table telling someone. So translating that to digital is definitely a challenge, but it's better than just the no story at all.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I guess when people go buy a car or go to a nice restaurant or something, then leaving that review is pretty easy. Whereas when people are taking products, financial products, especially loans, it's not something you kind of go around and shout about, is it really? So I suppose is it trying to get people to talk about the experience of being a member of a credit union, which is obviously very different to buying a product from a shop? Do you try and get people to talk about that kind of general, what else goes around that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we know working in the financial sector, members of the general public in United Kingdom don't like talking about money. Money is the taboo subject. We don't share our finances. So
absolutely, asking
someone who's got all their friends on Facebook who they work with to then post saying, this loan helped me so much, it saved my fridge, when they were keeping that a secret, it's never going to happen. They're not going to just turn because you asked them to. So you have to lean on, well, what about your experience? You don't need to mention the loan. The experience first class was amazing. They're a great credit union. They helped me so much. Not too specific, just generalise that you could use it in other scenarios. So we try to do that as much as possible, but it is still very difficult to ask someone to shout about your experience because, again, the general public are more likely to tell a bad story than a good story. If anyone spent 10 minutes on social media, especially in 2020, it's definitely a place to vent and not celebrate. So you're trying to turn that around.
That's a really good point, actually, because when people talk about digital marketing, right? So just to look at that a minute. When people talk about digital marketing, they often think of like emails and things.
Yeah.
And actually, you guys do a lot on social media, right? You do a lot of things on Twitter and Facebook, things like that. Does that work?
Yeah, we focus more on the social aspect, especially during 2020 when we don't want to touch on what I was saying about the start, when you're trying to translate what you're taught doing marketing to now. 2020, you're not going to email all your members to say take a loan when you don't know the financial situation of the country in 6 weeks' time. So that's been very difficult, but subtly dropping hints on social media like, should you need a new car if it breaks down? Should you need money for car repairs? Do you need your garden done? We're always here. So just make sure our hand's always up to the member, which seems to be the best place of social media to get that, to keep that relevancy in their mind, where they're scrolling aimlessly, maybe in bed at night or on the bus on the way to work in the morning. Oh, there's first class again. Oh, they're there again. So that's another key part to staying relevant.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I suppose, again, part of that sort of attracting a younger audience is that people are much more familiar with going on and searching for something on Facebook or searching for something on Twitter and seeing if you exist as part of even getting those reviews as well, right? If people are saying horrible things on Twitter, then they're more likely to sort of go away rather than anything else. But so that's really interesting. So do you see a lot of members kind of engaging with you through that channel then? Do people sort of...
Yeah, I mean, we've been using Zinc Digital lately for our paid social campaigns to help drive our membership numbers through the roof. That's the aim. It's been, the last couple of campaigns have been very successful. Return on investment's been great. We see a lot of engagement on those posts. Our members are just off the bat commenting on saying, great credit union, been with them for years. We also get the odd one saying, why are you trying to entice people to take loans? Those ones you're always going to get. If we get 5 good comments and 1 bad, I'm chuffed. Those numbers are great, but some of our members do fly the flag for us on those kind of posts. And when you bring in new members as well, just letting them know that, by the way, we've got social media pages. Why don't you go on and let people know how your joining process was or your experience so far? It's been that's what we tried to focus on that.
Nice. Do you out of interest, do you ever run like surveys with the members?
Yeah. So in the past year, we've ran 3 different surveys.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we ran just a generic membership survey before we went live with our new website and new members area. Just trying to grasp what our members wanted and needed from us. And off the back of that, I think it was something like 60% believed the website needed revamped, and just under 60% believed the loan process could be revamped as well, which is the 2 biggest focuses for us in July, was getting the website up to scratch. Is it user friendly? Is it mobile friendly? Can members use it any time of the day? Yes. Loan process, is it straightforward? Is it smooth? Is it understandable? Yes. And after going live with that, we then used a loan survey as well. So for a full month, we asked everybody who took a loan, can you rate the experience, please? Can you tell us, was this easier than before? Was it harder? Was it more confusing? What's your comments? 80% of those members said the loan process was very easy, and 10% said it was easy. The rest, obviously, you can't get 100 if you did. It'd be brilliant. And 95% said they were likely to recommend a first-class credit union loan because of the process to a colleague.
That's
so
good.
Our survey, I believe the rate of response was amazing as well. One of the surveys, we got over 1,200 responses.
Wow. That's really good.
The open rate for the email was about 18%, and the response rate was amazing.
But actually engaging with people and finding out what they need and what they think is such a powerful tool that, you know, most financial services organizations kind of they do, but you don't really get back anything that's necessarily aligned with what you said.
Yeah, I think that's that focuses on the technology as well. When you understand what your members need and want, then you can source the correct technology to make that happen. If we've done a financial impact survey just off the back of COVID at the end of the year, looking at were you affected, 75% of my members said no, their finances weren't affected, but 60% said their household had been affected by COVID, so someone else living. So we know that we need to try and focus on that side of the support, letting members know that we can help them should their family member need support. We also asked, what services do you want to see in the future? The majority wanted unattached shares. We still attached shares, so they wanted unattached. They wanted faster withdrawals. So that's where we're looking at ClearBank for automatic withdrawals. So identify the needs, identify the technology, and marry the two of them up. We hope to go live with ClearBank by the end of January, so that should be exciting. Some other ones to come out of that were debit and credit cards, which for a credit union on its own would be a massive feat to deliver a debit and credit card. But also, because we service an employer base who aren't financially included and also have many debit and credit cards already, providing a debit or credit card at cost to those members may be counterproductive. Even though they say they want one, do they understand what that means? And does the credit union then want to process direct debits on the back of that, deal with fraud claims on the back of that, missing cards? So you have to weigh up. It may be a need for the member and a want, but do they actually understand what that means?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think as we've come through the last year, there's been quite a shift away from people wanting to get access to the money in cash.
Yeah.
And the idea that I could go to an ATM and withdraw something versus do it on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And actually, I think people think of a card as being kind of an instant thing. And as you can achieve that in different ways, right? You could do it from a faster payment, or you could do it from lots of other things. And it seems that there's a shift depending on the credit union. And I think you've hit the nail on the head that, a lot of the people that you're dealing with are not financially excluded. This is a nice to have, where having certain aspects of a bank account, like having a bank account and sort code, is really important, because then it's like an account like you would get somewhere else, but not necessarily having the ability to make pay your gas bill or pay your rent and all those kind of things. You might not need all of that stuff, but having certain aspects of it is important, not the full thing. And it so massively changes what a credit union does, right? So it's kind of quite a big thing. It's interesting because a lot of credit unions are thinking about themselves in a slightly different way now, right? Calling themselves community banks and things like that. Is that something that you see as something that is kind of separate? What am I trying to ask? There's a different question in there. I'm trying to ask the question, really, do you think that First Class kind of sees itself moving more towards that, or staying with that very kind of credit union sort of oriented set of services, or do you think that it's members need those banking services? Because it sounds like they probably don't. They just kind of like the idea of it.
Yeah.
That actually as a set of services is not something that really is best served by the credit union. It's probably a question in there.
I think there is definitely a gap in the market for some credit unions to progress to become community banks and extend their services to the wider banking network. But for ourselves and maybe some others, it would be just extrapolating some of the aspects that banks have, especially now with ClearBank, Metro, and those kind of challenger banks, when we can just take some of the services they provide, plug it into a credit union and deliver a service we think our members want, or what a member asks us for, is probably the way we would go forward, sticking to that credit union route, but just delivering a little bit extra than we used to, but also not being a bank in that sense is probably where I see us going in the next 5-10 years. And it may change as the banking landscape changes, like it does every couple of years. But I think if we plug in instant payments, plug in electronic direct debits, maybe a sort code and account number, should our members need it. But bank cards and credit cards, like I said, I don't see that being a need that we would provide in the near future.
Got it. In terms of coverage of credit unions, I saw a really interesting stat the other day that said that like 1 in 6 people in Glasgow, which is where you guys are based, right?
Yep.
1 in 6 people in Glasgow had a credit union account, which is actually really high compared to the rest of the UK population.
Yep.
And obviously in places like Ireland and the US, credit unions are huge. You know, you've been with a credit union for like 5 years now, right? So
Yep.
over the next 5 years, do you see credit unions kind of, you know, as high street banks are moving away from the high street and payday lenders are going out of business and all those kind of things, do you see credit unions as kind of starting to grow into that space of really taking the place of some of those organizations for people who are looking for like affordable financial services?
But I think as we see high street banks leaving the high streets, there's a reason for that. It's unaffordable. You can't afford to have a high street shop anymore. Could a credit union afford to have a high street shop if a high street bank can't? So then it would be, well, how does a credit union bridge the gap between not having a stable office in the high street, but attaining the services or the interest of those customers who are going to that branch? There's definitely a challenge there for those credit unions who are looking to do that. If they can get in a high street and they just swap the card that used to be HSBC, now it's ScotWest, or now it's another community bank, then yes, I think they definitely tick that box and achieve what they're looking for. But then is it the affordability comes into play? Can they maintain 4 shops on 4 different high streets? Maybe not, as we know the high street's dying, especially with cash as well. I can't remember the last time I had cash in my wallet. I can't remember the last time I paid with my card. I just double tap my iPhone and pay for absolutely everything, from drive-throughs to my weekly shop. I don't have cash on me at all.
That's a really good point, because I suppose that's the one bit where people have become so used to being able to access their finances, right? That everything now is becoming very mobile and very kind of, you know, tapping your watch or tapping your phone. That I suppose in terms of people feeling more connected to their money, to know what their balance is all the time, or to be able to just go access things and sign up to a new account and move and join, all that kind of stuff, that maybe that's the driver to those banking type services, that people just want to feel that connected to the money all the time. And you mentioned earlier about, you know, that kind of 24/7 sort of service where somebody's sort of traveling home on the bus and want to apply for a loan, or they're coming home. And I suppose you're working with organizations who are heavily shift working, and they don't want to be dealing with you on your time when you're open. They want to be doing that in the, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning when they're getting home from work. I guess that changes the perspective. Do you see a lot of that? Do you see a lot of shift of people who might have otherwise sort of called you, for example? Do you think that's contributed to a lot of the growth that you've seen?
It's kind of on the back of that kind of shift work pattern. When we speak about technology and do we need it? Yes. What areas of the business will it service? Well, let's work out what the need is first. When we realised we needed faster payments for our members, we identified ClearBank. We still did some work on, well, when our members actually requesting share withdrawals, we know this is going to come in anyway, but let's just solidify this decision. Why do we need it? So we look at 55% of our share withdrawals come out of our regular working hours. So that's 55% of members waiting up to 18 hours for a withdrawal if they just missed the cut-off and have to wait to the next one the following morning. So this 55% of members then are going to get a huge increase of service. And I think that also touches on what credit unions can do to become more relevant and attract new members. It's not always about a new service, it's just about improving an existing one. If you can improve an existing one and without really shouting about it or telling members. They just kind of click, oh, I've got that now, or I never used to be like that, that's brilliant. Rather than saying, have you seen our new app, have you seen, just change it subtle. An improving sort of service can be as impactful as a new one. I think we've seen that definitely with the loan products and the joining form. It seems to have a massive impact.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because we talking earlier about that idea that credit unions have been around since the 60s and they've kind of grown with this sort of ever moving market. Actually, a lot of the people coming in are doing that on the basis of something completely new, you know, a mobile app where you can design your own logo before you log in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where actually what you're saying, you know, that very small incremental change just to keep it up to date and make sure people can access the right things all the time, it is probably as powerful as coming with something completely brand new and disruptive, and then it goes away. Because people don't really, at the end of the day, that's not really what people wanted. It was exciting for a minute and then it's gone.
And as we know, change is terrifying to some people, especially some credit union members who have been here for 20 odd years, who see the word new, and some people would just shy away with it. Small incremental changes that members just learn upon their own and don't rely on the credit union for too much IT background or on the call help. It can really have a benefit for both. It's kind of scaling success in that way, where you just change and change and change without members really noticing too much.
So exciting times, right?
Yeah, they're challenging but exciting.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that whenever we're talking about sort of growth and change and things that people are doing, there's always this real sense that everybody sees the opportunity to work with more payroll partners as being a really obvious way to do this. And obviously there are kind of challenges in that market that are doing that. But you guys have been working with payroll partners forever, right? I mean, that's kind of like your model of how you operate.
Yeah, when we first started within Royal Mail, it was payroll deduction from when we first started, and we've had a great relationship with Royal Mail over the years and helped each other at every kind of turn we need to, and we still receive a great service from Royal Mail today. Romex, Post Office, Compass, or the other ones we have. We're just trying to endeavour to get more and more as the years go on.
What if you could, if you could kind of educate a new employer who maybe had never thought of partnering with a credit union, what's the kind of excitement behind wanting to partner up? Why you talk about having a really good relationship and a great service that you offer? What is that service?
So we currently do presentations with the trade unions to kind of combat our old marketing techniques of going into offices, going into Royal Mail and standing in the canteen for a couple of hours or going to conferences. We now do presentations with reps within the workplace to say, look, we're a credit union for the members, here's how to help. Some of the stats we use in there are stats that the Barclays done I think it was a Taboo report 3-4 years ago around the financial situation of the working class within the UK. Where you take a lot of stats from that. I believe there's a third of employees have less than £1,000 in savings, and that aspect and how a savings in financials affects mental health and then affects workplace effectiveness, so on and so forth, and how much that costs the business to people having to take days off, productivity. So we'd start the conversation around combating that, and not from a force it down the employee's throat perspective, but enforce it as if we've always got a hand up to help you. You can help us. We treat you like an individual, not like the person sitting across from you at your table. So we'd probably broach it on that sense of, this is what we do, this is why we do it. Do you think otherwise? Tell us why you think that, and we will change your mind during the conversation.
That's it's really impressive. I mean, it strikes me that it's a really obvious model for any employer to want to get into. I mean, can you see that working kind of obviously in really big organizations? Can even small organizations join that kind of model too? Do you think they can get that same sort of benefit from companies who are a bit smaller than that?
I think so, yeah. Smaller companies rely on their employees much more than big employees. If I take my credit union, for example, we have 10 employees. If we take one out of that, the demand on the other 9 becomes more. You take 2 out, the demand becomes more and more. So I'd argue that in a smaller workforce, it makes more of an impact on the whole workforce. If there's 2 or 3 people who are worrying about finances and now not, then the workload doesn't have to be burdened on the rest of the workforce every couple of months if they have to leave with stress or anxiety, which we know financial situations can lead to.
That's such a good thing. Luke, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me and going through all that. And look, it's been an absolute delight talking to you about your role, First Class, where you see everything going in the future. I wish you guys the very best of luck in all of this. And I think it's inspirational to hear you talking about how you see your role as certainly evolving and kind of helping people in that situation in the future. I'm really excited because apart from the fact that I'm getting really old now and probably in that category of old people, it's really nice to see, kind of younger people coming through in this sector and really starting to make their mark on this and bringing all this real enthusiasm and energy to it. And so, well done on everything you've done so far. I think it's great. And I really do wish you the best of luck with it in the future. It's very exciting to see what you're doing. And thanks very much for the time. I'm sure everybody's really enjoyed listening to you speaking. So thanks.
Well, thank you.